Ahoy, and greetings, I guess. Hi, Booktube. I'm doing a tag today. I realized I haven't introduced myself very well in this channel yet, but my name is Mariana, and I'll be doing that newcomers tag pretty soon. You know the one. Today, though, for now, I'm doing a tag that I thought was interesting, and I lifted it straight from Greg. Mr. Greg, aka another bibliophile reads here on Booktube. So thanks very much for making this tag. So I have his instructions right here in front of me, and he says, try to be fast and on topic. There can always be exceptions and it depends explanations, but go for the gut reaction to the prompt in general terms. Pick either hot or not. Yeah, easy enough, right? A is for audiobooks. Hot, yeah, they save my life at work. I work a pretty solitary job in a laboratory, and I have a lot of time to listen to that kind of thing. I rely on audiobooks to not stay alone with my thoughts at work. And I haven't washed a dish without an audiobook in quite some time. B is for Bildungsroman, dealing with a person's formative years or spiritual education. Hot. I don't mind that. You know, formation is important, and sure, everyone has awkward years, and some of us are always awkward, but people have those moments where they turn their lives around. C is for children's books. They are hot. It sounds kind of weird to say, but yeah, children's books are something I love. Children's books are one of those things that people think are so easy to make until they try to make them themselves. And there are some authors and artists who are pretty brilliant, if you ask me. For example, Mercer Mayer and Richard Scarry. D is for digital. I'm going to say not. And listen, nothing really against it in general. It's a reason pretty particular to me. You know, it's kind of my problem. I'm not really sure how to say it or explain it. I break technology. All my digital stuff breaks. Anything that runs on electricity kind of goes haywire around me. Not all the time, but it's happened. Only to me. I've got witnesses and stuff. So, whatever. It's fine. E is for experimental. Hot, yeah. Anything that's trying to be something different and new. Trying to be kind of kooky. It doesn't always work out, but it's fine by me. F is for fantasy. Hot, yeah. Fantasy is a pretty safe genre for me. It's probably where I started reading as a kid. Because the original fiction is basically fantasy, arguably. Yeah, it's a safe genre for me to fall back on. And it seems to be that way for a lot of people these days, actually. So, I'm not really genre bound, but I like it. G is for graphic novel. Hot, I like them. I read a lot of manga too, but I'm a little tired of superhero stuff, I've got to say. I've got Marvel fatigue. I blame the United States, which is my country. H is for horror. Hot, yeah, I like it. It's not something I read as much as other things, but I'm always open to reading it. It doesn't have to be Halloween or a particularly harrowing time for me. It's kind of hard to write good horror, I think, but it's really strangely fun when you find it. I is for inspirational. I'm not really sure what you mean by this. If you're talking about the self-help kind of thing, I'm going to say not, because there's so much to be inspired by. Everybody gets inspired by something kind of different, at least I think. Seems that way to me, but, it depends. That definitely does depend on the person. J is for journalism. Not, I guess. I mean, journalism is important. Yeah, what am I saying? I read the newspaper. Well, it's not in my top reads, I guess. K is for kitsch. Has a popular or sentimental appeal. This one's kind of borderline, but I'll say hot. I like sentimentality. it's good for you. L is for library. Yeah, that's hot, as our friend Paris would say. And libraries are pretty comforting to me. I used to work at one for a number of years. I was a book jockey. And it was a pretty safe place. It was a nice place to find myself in. It's still comforting. I still go, not as much. Mostly I use Libby, and I'm borrowing audiobooks and stuff. But yeah. And let's be real. How many people on here are not library lovers? M is for mystery. Hot. I think mystery is another one that's kind of hard to write. Or at least it's hard to write a good one. There's a lot of planning involved. But I like mystery, sure. I'll read it. I think I like a mystery aspect involved in something else. I like the integration of mystery in whatever I'm reading. N is for nonfiction. Hot. 100%. Trust me, I like it when people make stuff up and write it down for me to read. But I like science books. I like natural history stuff. Books about plants and animals, especially. I like philosophy. O is for omnibus. Yeah, this one's kind of hard because, no, not really. It's hot, okay, but it's kind of not, because it depends on what you mean by this. If you're talking about a book that's pretty big and that I have to drag with force, then that's a little tricky for me to like, since I'm usually dragging something with me in terms of books. But in terms of content, yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. P is for poetry. Yeah, I'll give it to them. I'll throw them one. That's hot enough. I don't really read a lot of poetry. Do I like it? Sometimes. I don't know. I might be picky with this. And I write it. I think I write more than I read, but I have to say that I write only like jokey poetry. I just do that for some reason for my friends every once in a while. I can make up a joke poem in like 2 minutes. But yeah, to be fair, sure, poetry is hot. Q is for quests. Hot, sure. Yeah, I read fantasy, which inevitably involves quests, pretty much. Anything where there's an object that somebody's got to go fetch, I like that. Or, maybe you're on a quest to better yourself or fix your hair or something. R is for romance. Listen, I'll read it. I'll still read it. And nothing against romance. I mean, I am married, okay? But it's just that romance seems like such a wild card. It could be anything. I think I'm more used to romance just being in some other category of story. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about this kind of surge of fantasy with heavily embedded romance. Like, it's a big element. I think that's more of a young adult thing. Is it? I don't know, they get kind of explicit these days too. S is for science fiction. Hot, easily. I have nothing to resolve there. Science fiction is pretty easy to love for me. And a lot of people don't get into it as much as, say, fantasy, and they're often grouped together. I guess it depends on how accessible it is, because science fiction can be kind of dry. I don't know. Not always, of course, but I like concepts. I like abstractions. I like ideas based on science. Stretch an idea. Please go ahead. I don't particularly like space stuff. I find that more horrifying. I think that needs to go into more horror stories. Though I'll still read it. 2001: A Space Odyssey was good. And I am a fan of Alien, the movie. But, in general, yeah. T is for translation. Hot, of course. I'm a big fairy tale fan, and, they come from around the world. I mean, if you read classics, how much of that is a translation? It's a lot of stuff, right? My English and Spanish are all right. I know a tiny bit of German and Italian, and I can probably understand French if I read it. It would be a struggle. U is for Übermensch. The Superman or the Extraordinary Human? Yeah, I'm tired of this. It has to be a not from me, because I have Marvel fatigue, like I was saying, and I'm just kind of over it right now. I don't tire of Batman, though. Poison Ivy. V is for Victorian. Hot, yeah. Ghost stories, cool architecture. W is for Western. I'll say hot, yeah. I feel kind of obligated because I'm from the Western United States, so it's familiar. But yeah, it's not something I seek out all the time, but if it's, if there's a book lying around, I'll read it. X is for Xrated. I'm open-minded, but it feels like a cliche to say hot, so I'm gonna say not. Y is for young adult. My gut reaction is not. Listen, if you're gonna recommend something to me that's a young adult book, I'll read it. Don't worry about it too much. I don't really look for that so much these days. Like, it's probably not in my top 5 patterns in terms of books and what I actually walk to and touch. And Z is for zeitgeist, spirit or mood of the times. Yeah, that kind of depends, because do you know what you're getting into when you are reading this, or do you find out, or is it like the times are now and you don't really know because you're living in the times and you won't know until you look back? I'll say hot. If you're moody, you want to know what you're getting into, and it's useful to know different moods of different times. Okay, it got kind of dark as I was recording, so I'm gonna have to go now. Thank you again for making this tag, Greg. I'd say anybody who wants to do it, go right ahead. So, goodbye.